I'm going to explore this concept you're describing, right? Because we're discussing trust at a far more deeper level. Okay? Now, years ago, I did a course on self-development. And one of the exercises was along the lines of how much you trust people. And you had to walk around the room talking about, with the others, and there were about 30 odd people in the room, of do you trust them or not? Now, I'm not going to tell you what the right or wrong answer is, but in hindsight, it was a fascinating exercise of learning of whether you want to trust someone or not, and how to trust. And it's interesting over the years to have seen people who claim to be trusting, but were generally distrustful. And it's also fascinating that those who would claim to be untrusting were generally trusting. And it's an interesting paradox that we all experience. Because those who claim that I do trust are very judging in terms of who they trust. And those who claim that they don't trust tend to tentatively trust others. Because life involves trust. There's a book along the lines of Business at the Speed of Trust. In the old days, they claim of having done business deals by a shake of a hand. All right? That means you say, I will give you X amount and I will give of goods and you give me X amount of money and we'll shake hands and the deal was done, or deal is done. Nowadays, you know this, if you have something but a shake of hands, you are dead. You need to have contracts drawn up, you need to pay lawyers tens of hundreds of thousands of dollars, rands, whatever denomination you're using to conclude the deal, and there too, you got to get it verified, and that too, as much as you have it all in writing, it being taken to court and still be disputed. So trust, and by the time you get the deal done, it can take weeks, months, years. And also what's interesting over the years to witness is people who insist that trust is fundamental to who they are, and therefore you should trust them. And life also shows that those who insist that you trust, sometimes may be the ones who are most untrustworthy. Why? Because over life, you will meet people, and this is what life's about, that you will encounter people and situations and circumstances that will challenge your trust. Beyond trust, it will challenge your respect. It will challenge you as a person. Okay? So it reminds me of a scenario where a patient categorically had been through a program for substance use, a youngster of about 19. Okay? And actually, one of the things was he didn't want to go into the program. He was going to enter the program. And he says, Doctor, trust me, I will never use substances. I don't need to go through this 3-week program. There's nothing I will achieve. I am categorically going to not use substances again. So I gave him a scenario. I said, you at a party, right? There's the girl that you find most attractive sitting there. You notice her from across the room. And at some point, somehow, you get chatting to her. And you've been endeavoring to stay clean of alcohol, as you've done maybe for a week, a month. And she offers or suggests, why don't we have a drink together? All right? And it could lead to more of a relationship or something to that extent. Are you going to say yes or no? And you could literally see his face change because he says, no, you're asking me an unfair question. The thing is, life will throw at you unfair situations and circumstances. Welcome to planet Earth. You will be whacked from the side. The very people who will bend down on bended knee and say, please trust me. There'll be situations and circumstances that was beyond their concept of what life was going to be. Okay? At this time, we are learning gee whiz, there's this pandemic going on, okay? How do you trust someone who walks into a room and claims, hey, I've not had this illness before, or I've not got any symptoms? We see it as doctors because people want to continue living their lives, and they will deny having any symptoms to achieve a particular situation. So trust is a very challenging concept because life will throw at you where you cannot even trust yourself. And I'll give you a simple scenario, but again, if you have decided to stick to your weight loss program, as we all do on a daily basis, and you're faced with your most tempting chocolate treat, can you even trust yourself in that moment? And it's all unwrapped, waiting for you at home. I've experienced it where, like, it's just like this chocolate is calling you. All right? In the middle of the night, I've hardly eaten today. And what we do in our minds, we justify the act. The mind will make right, logical, and rational why you've got to have that chocolate treat. It'll just add 1 or 2 more calories. It's not a big deal today. And every day you start from square one again. It's just 1 or 2 calories. It's not a big deal. I will train on the weekend. So be wary of the concept of trust. All right? In fact, it leads us to an expression: love all, respect all, trust few, follow one, hate none. Be wary of who you trust. All right? But that doesn't mean then you go into a paranoid state of being. It doesn't mean that you become suspicious of everyone. All right? Because we need to be able to trust, or else we'll all live very sheltered lives in that hole, because then we'll have to put out there, don't trust. Anyone who comes and says trust, we're going to end up in trouble. You understand? And some of us then don't live as a result of trust. Okay? And be also wary, why are we trusting? Why do we endeavor to trust people? The reason we trust people at some point, as much as it's a transaction at some level, is we want to live life free. But be careful when we say to someone, I trust you, what you're doing is you may be developing a desire, a want, an expectation from them. And our neediness, our desperation, pushes us to trust those who are the least trustworthy. And then we set ourselves up for failure because our inadequacy or our incompleteness makes us trust those that are the least trustworthy. And we say to them, I will trust you. And we do it in different ways. I will love you. I will care for you. I will respect you. And it's like they're standing on a chair and they have no choice but to fall down.
So do you think that, like, having these issues and trusting someone leads to, like, an unfair attachment bond?
Elaborate?
Like, you know how sometimes you think you trust someone when in actual fact you're just attached to them?
Yes. So let me give you a scenario again, right? Because let me ask this question. Does love equate to trust? Because an attachment is a form of love, or love is a form of attachment. Caring is a form of attachment. Okay? So, does love equate to trust? All right? Some of you have children, right? I assume we all love our children. Okay? And little so-and-so comes home from school and you get the WhatsApp message. Before I should say you get a written message. Get a WhatsApp message from his school teacher saying, Mr. So-and-so, young master so-and-so, has been pilfering from the school tuck shop. And you say, never, my child? But then they also send you the WhatsApp video, the CCTV camera footage, and you can see the guy stuffing his pockets, satchel with the chocolates, and like you're thinking, okay, and there's rules at school, so much tuck money and all those things, and this guy's like, oh my God, he's gone over the budget, So there's no way you can justify that he was going to pay for the stuff. So all you're on a hiding to nothing, right? So anyway, you give him a piece of your mind, or you put the rules and regulations, whatever you may be comfortable with, whatever your country's rules and regulations are. You can only talk to your son from 2 meters away, or in my mom's time when it was, it was like not talking from 2 meters. You had to run and make sure you were 2 meters away from her. It was the other way around, right? And get yourself into the attic or something like that where she couldn't get up, right? Okay. So as much as you kind of learned your lesson, and you as a parent realize, okay, certain things about your child, you take him to the local department store and to buy his new clothes for the season, for school, and you see him making a beeline for the chocolate, right? And you've grounded him to chocolate and anything of that kind, for the next month, a year, or for maybe sometimes the rest of your life, right? And you see him heading for the chocolate, and you love the guy. You all agree? Yeah. Do you trust the bugger? Different situation altogether. Be wary. What we do with children, we understand, we love them, but interestingly, we say it doesn't necessarily equate to an element of trust. Because why? The guy loves chocolate. He has to stuff his face up. He can't help himself. All right? What's interesting, with the 8-year-old, 10-year-old, we can understand that. But the problem is sometimes when they turn 28 or 38, we start equating trust with love, and we wonder why we got messed up. Any form of attachment doesn't necessarily equate to trust. As we said earlier, people under certain circumstances, situations will act as per their will. It takes a lot of sometimes reflection, introspection. I will not eat that chocolate. They've done this study where they put these youngsters into a room alone, and they put on a plate. It's on social media platforms. You can see the videos where they put on the saucer a marshmallow, and they give them 5-10 minutes to say, avoid eating the marshmallow, all right? And because we'll double it up. And what do kids say? Yeah, because 2 marshmallows are better than 1, right? Okay? And 5-10 minutes for a 5-10-year-old is like a lifetime. And you see these poor kids kicking their feet, counting, licking the top of the marshmallow, judging a marshmallow, and some of them, within the first second, it's rammed down their throat. The others are like 10 minutes later, it's like solitary confinement. I think that's more tougher, sitting in that room alone, than the marshmallow, right? Okay? It's amazing. They can't even trust themselves, even though it means double marshmallows, And we want to trust others. The only way you can trust is learn how to trust yourself, recognize the full spectrum of what you are in order to understand people. So be wary where we start, as you're saying, equating emotional attachment with trust. And all we're doing is setting ourselves up for failure. See people for what they are, rather than what you want them to be, or what you make them out to be. And I'll take it a step further. See people for what they are, rather than what they make themselves out to be. And the third one is see people for what they are, rather than what the whole world may make them out to be. And it's challenging because we want the world to be in a certain way, we want people to be in a certain way, we want ourselves to be in a certain way. But we're still on a journey. And if it's like getting out of school, we're still in grade 2 or 3. We still got a long way to go. And if you feel, wait a minute, I'm being too tough, look at the wars that are happening. Look at the suffering around the world. And some of the solutions may be somewhat simple. Maybe we shouldn't spend money on some luxury items. Maybe we need to spend it on food. Or maybe we need to not spend billions on, which is the biggest industry in the world? Armaments. I mean, in terms of war. All right? Yet we claim peace. All right? So we need to recognize this is the nature of the world. We have what we call sin industries, gambling, alcohol, cigarettes. Okay? Something interesting, the CEO of one of the tobacco companies in the UK said within 10 years, he feels tobacco products should no longer exist. Something to that extent. Okay? Now that's powerful because one of the biggest industries in the world is the tobacco industry. All right? So the whole thing is we need to recognize, we need to shift, be wary of trust. Be wary of trust because I'm not necessarily saying that you then walk around paranoid and suspicious. Let's take the concept of trust further. And by the way, I'm not just talking of trust. It's about love for others. It's about respect for others. It's about caring for others. It's about compassion and kindness. All these things play a role in the concept of trust. Okay? So I'm going to give you a scenario. And the scenario is, we're here at this facility, and we're in Africa, and someone insists that they want their pet lion admitted to the facility as well. Not admitted as in coming to the place to receive treatment, but wants his lion to be with him, right? And we've had interesting requests over the years. We haven't had that yet, but maybe a matter of time, okay? And we think about it, and because we all mean well for others, we set up, let's call it a cage at the bottom of the garden that fits in with the Society for Prevention of Cruelty to Animals specification. So he's got his pet lion at the bottom of the garden, a huge enclosure, right? Beautiful enclosure. And every day you go out there at the end of the day to visit this lion because, hey, wow, it's a beautiful lion. It's got this amazing mane. And we think, wow, I'd like to check out this lion. And as we all sit there on the outside, just like we're sitting here, and we look at this lion in this enclosure, it gets up from wherever it is, and it comes towards you. And it sits down just on the inside of the cage, and you're on the outside. And you think, wow, this lion came to me specifically? You know, this is amazing. It's never happened to me before. And everyone says, wow, this lion seems to like you, and we dismiss it. But the next day you come back, you sit somewhere else, and this lion seems to get up from wherever it is and follow you. And it does this every single day. And if in fact, when you walk along the side of the cage, it follows you. And everyone starts saying, wow, this lion really cares for you. This lion really loves you. Even the owner, like, my lion's never done this for anyone else. And you're really taken by this lion. It's better than all the medication you're taking, all the therapy. This is what you wanted, your connection with nature, your real wow with life. This is it, this is amazing. You really wanted, and wow, of all animals, a lion, the king of the jungle, all right? So you there and you're feeling wow about yourself, and a week goes by, 2 weeks go by, you've taken pictures of this lion on WhatsApp, Instagram, name your platform, it's there with you on the outside. You've got pictures that go viral of this lion. And 2-3 weeks later, the lion and its owner are leaving, and you're like, oh, this is sad. I really love this lion. And on the last day, you're there with the lion on the inside, you on the outside, and you're thinking, geez, I'll miss this lion. And someone shouts out, hey, why don't you go into the cage and take a selfie with the lion? And he may say to you, in the name of trust, love, respect, kindness, and caring, do that. Any takers? No, everyone's looking tentative. All right, so everyone, appropriate answer. No one goes into the cage with the lion. Why? Why don't we? Because we know what a lion is, right? Okay, but interestingly, you love the lion. You think it's the best thing that happened to you. All right? We all agree we will not go into the cage with the lion. Now I'll ask a question. And it's an answer that you need to introspect about, reflect about. In fact, you're not asking for an answer, but it's an answer for you yourself. In your life, while growing up and maybe even definitely as an adult, you've encountered various forms of lions and lionesses. Why did you go into those cages with those lions and lionesses? And some of us have come here because we are still recovering from the wounds inflicted by various lions and lionesses in our lives. And as much as we spend a week, a month, a year trying to recover, some of us seem like we'll have to spend lifetimes recovering. We hold that pain, that hurt, that suffering. We're not in that space of harmony, bliss that we want. And as much as if it was a physical line, you could pull yourself out and get out of there. And maybe if you did go in there and you end up at the emergency room, being stitched up at 2 a.m, and the doctor stitching you up says, wait a minute, what exactly did you do? And you have to say, I went into the cage with a lion. And the doctor at 2 a.m. is like, who really would rather be sleeping, he's got another shift starting tomorrow. What do you know is he thinking or she's thinking in her mind? Yeah, say it. We are crazy, stupid, naive, foolish, right? And if you think of those people that you encountered in your life where you went in there with absolute love, absolute trust, absolute care, absolute respect, low BO, you can look back now, if you're being honest with yourself, you'll say, was I being naive, crazy, stupid, and foolish? And if you look back in hindsight, probably the writing was even on the wall, but we refused to see it because you knew love will conquer all. It rhymes, wall and all, right? It's amazing what we do in the name of love, and we assume then we will be fulfilled, but we end up completely broken, completely messed up, our cups completely depleted. And we become untrusting, paranoid, suspicious. Now, I've got to give you another situation given we've discussed that, because the concern is, if we use the lion analogy, some of us will say, geez, does that mean I must sit, be careful of others in my life, never trust? This is the journey to go forth, which I'll discuss. What we need to do to achieve, go beyond. This is how we break free of these walls and defenses that we've built up over time. What you and I need to do is go forth in complete awareness of what life throws at you. And what does that mean is we become more giving in the name of love. We give unconditionally, absolutely, selflessly. And the scenario I'll use is, South Africa first participated, I think, in the Rugby World Cup in 1995. Okay? It was a very joyous, eventful occasion. If you go onto media platforms, you will see the plane flying over the stadium. The stadium was Ellis Park, yeah, and the other great thing about it is we won the World Cup, right, on a home ground. And prior to the match, there was a huge fanfare, and probably the main attendee was Nelson Mandela. Okay? Now I want to give you a scenario that imagine yourself as being his main bodyguard in charge of his security. All right? And you standing there next to him in the VIP lounge overlooking what's going on in the grounds. And you're not just some ordinary bodyguard. You are the real thing. You are James Bond, Salt, Terminator. I'm trying to think of a few movies along the lines of this Jason Bourne, right? Who's those other guys? Who? The Rock, okay, yeah, all right. Jason Statham, that's that other guy, yeah, is it? Yeah. You all that and more. You got guns, bullets, knives. You got it all. right? And a six-pack if you're into that, and a whole lot more. Some of us will just settle for the six-pack, right? And you, his main go-to, right? And you're scanning the audience, and it's 1995. Remember, South Africa, 1994, we had the elections, and it was the end of apartheid. It was, wow, rainbow nation. But things were still, it couldn't say it was 100% change. As much as it was a change in the structure, people's minds were still the same. And you're scanning the audience, which has a very different crowd to what you would generally expect at a Nelson Mandela rally. It was mainly those who had supported rugby, which was at that time a sport that was promoted by the previous government. So the supporters of the sport were not necessarily people that sided with Mandela. And you can see the audience and you can notice some volatile elements. And as is the case, Mandela says to you prior to the match, I want to go down and greet the teams. And you being the head of security, having to make sure this person stays alive, even at the expense of your life, do you advise him to go down to greet the teams before the match? And you can see it's all going on. There's been a high alert. The guys on the pitch are telling you, make sure that the president is safe. This environment looks a bit volatile. Do you allow him to go down? So we most agree that you'll say no. Why? Because it's a dangerous environment. Yet Mandela went down and greeted the teams. Why did he do that? What was the reasoning? You agree there was reason not to trust. There was reason to be wary of your own particular safety. Why did he go down? Was it, okay, you fought for the country, therefore I must go down?
Not therefore he must go down, but he trusted that they won't do anything to him because he made sure that they would be.
You possibly may be right, but something interesting that override trust. He was completely aware of who his enemy was and is. He went down in the name of love. Love overrides, in many situations, the trust that may be depleted. But you love unconditionally and absolutely. That means it's not conditional on a certain circumstance and situation. Remember the scenario I gave you of the lion in the cage? Right? If you are a mum and your child was in the cage, many mums will rush in the name of love. Doesn't mean you trust the lion. In fact, the fact that you don't trust makes you run in. You love unconditionally, absolutely, eternally, and infinitely. Mandela loved the country. His love overrided the need for trust. I'm not saying now that you go into certain scenarios where you know you're going to definitely be killed and say in the love or the trust or in terms of love of a relationship. All right? It's not necessarily, one might argue, worthwhile. All right? Love for children overrides. Love for country, in Mandela's case, overrode his concern about his safety to the point when he did say years ago in the Rivonia trial, it is a cause for which I'm prepared to die. And what that allows you to do, one of the main reasons we don't wish to break free is the name of fear. What was amazing about him walking down or doing what he did in his life is not that he didn't have fear, is he conquered fear. At some point when we live in the scarcity bubble, we fear stepping out. We're afraid of going out there and experiencing. And amongst other things, we fear the unknown. We fear the people around us. We fear the criticism and judgment of others. We want to fit in. But to break free of these boundaries and walls and defenses that we've built means stepping forth in courage. Now, something important in terms of stepping out of depression or anxiety or stress is I want Over the years, people have said, when you're depressed or anxious, is your mind sees no answer, no logical and rational solution, no doorway out. All right? Now, when you're faced with that situation, you and I generally rely on our minds to come up with some solution, and that's why our minds go around in circles. It kind of completely overwhelms you. Your mind thinks and thinks and thinks, but it knows no way out. But what you got to recognize is the mind cannot offer you a solution because the mind is looking for logical and rational solutions, but there isn't any. And then you have to do something very challenging for the mind. It means you have to put your mind aside. In fact, take it, put it like on a table somewhere, and literally go forth with faith and hope and conviction. And I'm going to introduce the word that we've been talking about for the last 10, 20 minutes. You and I need to go forward with trust. But we just discussed, sometimes you cannot even trust yourself. You can't trust the people around you. Who do you trust? What do you trust? How can you go forward with faith, hope, conviction, and trust if you just said that we cannot trust? What you and I need to do is go forward in faith, hope, conviction, and trust in the universe. You do your absolute best and you leave the rest. And something to add to that, because what you and I do when we do something, we've learned this from grade 1, we expect something in return. When you give some form of money to a person, you expect a trade in return. We expect a return on our investment. It becomes transactional. At a true level of love and trust, it is not transactional. I'm not saying that yes, you may not expect anything because the universe will determine how and what and where you will get it. So as much as you don't receive, you still do your best. What then happens is that life will deliver to you as and when it is appropriate, rather than your mind which says, I want it now. We all are completely impatient. If we could have it, we'll want it yesterday. You agree? We don't want it today at the moment. And there someone tells us you have to wait a week, a month, a year, 10 years, 20 years. But life then closes off, it seems, one door, another door, and opens the third door because maybe that's the most appropriate door to open. So when you do to the best of your ability with absolutely no expectation of a return. And that way in, you trust in the universe. There's an expression, the universe is conspiring for your greatest good. And most of us, what we do is we take our logical and rational minds and expect delivery within the same day. Well, we live in that age where we expect delivery in the same day. But even though we live in an age of absolute comfort, you have mobile phones, we have television, we have all these kind of things that add to our comfort. It's not about the physical comfort that we're in here addressing. We're dealing with the mental and emotional comfort that we all lack. In fact, there's a scarcity of it. And the universe will act in its own, I'll use the word rhythm, to deliver. So rather than going with the pace of life, you and I need to learn to go with the rhythm of life. It will deliver as and when is necessary for you. But yet, it doesn't mean, very important, as I said, that you become complacent and feel, I don't need to do. You need to do. You need to do your absolute best. Yet be completely detached from the fruits of your endeavor. Completely detached from the results that you expect. Completely detached from the outcomes. And then you're truly living true to yourself.